Hey there, I'm Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week, I talked to Hannah and Sam of the band Harlow. The band formed earlier this year and released their debut EP, Playing Dove, in November. During our conversation, we discussed the band's formation and dig into the songs featured on the release. It's Hannah and Sam of Harlow, and it's all right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How you doing on this evening?
Doing great.
The blackout Wednesday of the day before Thanksgiving. I learned that phrase this week, so...
There you go.
Everybody going back to their hometown bars to get drunk. So do you want to introduce yourselves here for the people listening at home? Both of you are no strangers to the podcast. I talked to Hannah with Laska right at the beginning of the pandemic, and then I've talked to Sam with other projects in the past. But if you want to quick introduce yourselves, what you do, and what's going on.
Yeah, why don't you go first, Hannah?
Okay, I'm Hannah. I sing some harmonies, sometimes some lead, and play some violin in Harlow.
Cool. All right, well, I'm Sam Ketchum. I'm the guitar player and singer, and I write most of the songs for Harlow. And past groups that perhaps would recognize is Sal Paradise, and Hannah's obviously in Alaska, like you said.
Yeah. Well, cool. Something I've been asking to bands is what's your pitch for Harlow when people go, oh, cool, you make music, like, and what kind of music do you make? What's that like 1 to 2 sentence response you give to like give people that preview without being like, well, if you go find us on Spotify, we make XYZ, you know?
Yeah. Gosh, I almost always say, I feel like it almost always boils down to what you can like say as a joke in band practice that kind of sticks.
Yeah.
And so initially it was soft rock, and then someone said velvet rock, and I don't know, but who cares? Indie rock, something like that. That's kind
I'd
of
like to say velvet rock just because no one knows what that means.
I like it.
for sure. But how I just did it there, where I stumbled over it, that's exactly how I would do it to a stranger, and I would be like, you just gotta listen. It's a hard question, though. We should all be able to answer it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Velvet rock is quite an evocative way, because you're just like, oh, is this like almost feels like lounge music or something where you should be in like a velour jumpsuit and like relaxing with like a cigarette and like in a martini or something.
It's definitely a little decadent, I would say, with just like how much the music is kind of indulgent a little bit, because it's just sometimes there's just so much going on. So this is the first time I've thought about it in that way. But yeah, you're right.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe velvet rock with a touch of fun country.
Yeah, lighthearted.
Like you're borderline on like rhinestone cowboy kind of.
Yes,
like the.
That sounds perfect.
Like a nice jumpsuit. So talk to me. How did the band Harlow form? Because I like, again, like I mentioned at the top of the interview, I know you from individual projects, and then with the pandemic, everybody kind of went quiet as they were figuring stuff out. And suddenly, early this year, I started seeing Instagram posts of stuff, and I was like, oh, Hannah and Sam are in a new band. So talk to me like the beginning of the band and how Harlow formed.
Okay, so Sal Paradise ended in the pandemic, just kind of like went our separate ways, and I was itching to do another, like something still, because I had some songs, as like a lot of us did in the pandemic, we were holed up. I got some songs and made some demos with all my time that I had, and then through like old friends that I had that I always wanted to work with, but like they just never quite aligned with where we were geographically. My friend Jack, he and I just kind of started playing, and then I knew Hannah from Alaska because Sal and Alaska had played quite a few shows together, and so last February I just kind of sent the demos around, and then everyone came in, and it kind of just clicked a lot faster than a lot of the other bands I've been in, and it's no like dig, but
no.
It just felt very like organic, and everyone kind of just, we'd finish and kind of nod at each other and be like, okay, that sounds close to like a finished song.
Yeah. So who approached who then to like to make the band come? Because Sam, you said you'd been writing songs during the pandemic, and you had like various connections to the various band members. I think I saw like your first Av bio. You had like grown up with some of them, and you'd played in bands with other ones, and then obviously Sam, you and Hannah know each other from just the scene and playing together in general. Who was the first like? Who'd you first reach out to? Who was the first person you're like, hey, I got a project. Let's start doing something.
I think it would have been me to Jack, because we lived with each other. So then we just started doing that. And then Michael was in close quarters. And I knew kind of odd. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but sometimes when you get into like a niche of bands in your group, and you've ever been to a show where there's 3 bands, but all the members play in each band, and they all just play different instruments.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing that was happening with me and a lot of the Red Wing guys, because we all grew up together down there, and it's just good. Like, we click musically. So I was like kind of looking for someone else too, but then I was like, Michael's just the perfect fit. Mm-hmm. So that's how that lined up. And then Julia and I played in a jazz combo at Hamlin. We both faked it because neither of us actually know how to play jazz, but I can like do a walking bass line, and I knew she was great from that.
It's actually also kind of funny because Sam reached out to Bex, my sister, first.
Okay.
And she like jammed with him one time, but I mean I'm blaming it on the fact that everyone knows that Bex plays violin because she plays violin in Alaska, and nobody knows that I did. Mm-hmm. But then Bex moved across the country, so Sam was like, Hannah, I hear you're still around. And I was like, second best is good enough for me.
It sounds bad, but that's not how I was thinking.
He was like, yeah, that's funny.
I didn't even know you played violin, so that was a big surprise.
Yeah. So then, what time frame was like the full band together? Because you had like 5 members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
5. What do you think it was, Hannah? Like January or February?
Yeah, I think it was we were probably playing full band around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And were the songs that you have on the EP released a few months ago, were those songs that already existed, or were they something that like came out of those formation jam sessions and practices in the beginning of 2021?
They already existed. Some of them are like really old songs that I had that I never knew where, like, I couldn't fit them anywhere in the current projects I was in. But I liked them enough to keep them around. And so, we kind of had them set to go, but they morphed into something different with when the band came along.
Okay. So what was the first song then like the band completed as a whole?
What was it, Hannah?
That's a good question.
Was it Too Many Sides of the Same Coin?
Maybe, yeah. I feel like One Day in the Country, that was like one of the first ones, wasn't it?
Yeah. We have this song called One Day in the Country that we recorded for the EP, but then decided not to release it because you can always fix stuff, but there's one thing you can't fix is tempo. If something's too slow, then you just it's just too slow.
Yeah, you can, artificially speeding that up is something that doesn't work.
Right, and maybe that it was left off because it's just those last minute like moments when you're listening to the record over and over and over again. And I don't know about these little very specific things, but we'll probably release it later.
Gotcha.
Oh, actually, I feel like the first song that I really played on was To Sort Out What Was Out of Line.
Oh, right.
That was one of the first ones for sure.
Yeah, I've had that song for really long. I think I wrote that song when I was like, 17 or 18. And I don't even know if it necessarily fits with the other songs on this one, but it just needed to be.
That song is so good. It's so fun to sing.
Yeah.
It's
really true.
Yeah, because that's the site. Is that the one you said the sort of what was out of line? Yeah. That one's like, 'cause it's like listening to the EP. There's almost like 2 sides of the it very much an A and a B side, and like I don't mean that in like a B side, no. But like the first half of that EP is very folk rock, kind of more singer songwritery, and by the time you get to the single, The Two Sides of the Same Coin, and then Yesterday Was Gone, it definitely has like you get more into the velvet rock part of Harlow.
Yeah.
Did those?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say like that. That's exactly correct. And as much as I'd like to say that was like planned, I think that has a lot to do with like musical confusion, and that like you don't know exactly what you want out of like, what you're writing. You just know that like you like that. So sometimes you just need to mash things together, and then you say something nice like felt like good A and a B side, good flip. But I don't know.
So then so you said that the second song, the what was out of line, or sort of the two to sort out what was out of line. That one you'd written, you know, when you were a teenager. Were a lot of were a lot of the other songs then sitting, then kind of on the shelf, waiting for Harlow to come along, or were those a little more recent?
They were a bit more recent. Too Many Sides and Open with Kid Gloves were both quarantine songs, and then Yesterday's Gone was like 2019, something like that. So definitely To Sort Out What Was Out of That was the oldest one and came the furthest.
Gotcha. And how was it bringing it to the? You said there's a lot of these songs morphed when they were brought to the group, like with Hannah and Jack and Michael and the fifth member that is coming, drawing a blank. There you go. How did those songs then morph? Like Hannah, when you heard them for the first time, did you have like a place you wanted to take them, or was it more of just as you add parts and add your touches to them?
Yeah, I think we kind of just all added our touches. I think we've kind of started to build on them more as we've been developing songs now. I think those first songs were kind of already made up and we just put our own flavor into them. But now there's like a lot of times at practice where we're like building different parts. Like there's a song that Jack and Sam just built up like this harmony guitar part that I love. And so like it's fun to build songs more up like that in practice.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Much more collaborative, especially when you have so many members.
Yeah, I think it's hard to like. People always ask like, do you write as a band or do you write solo? And like, I don't know how many groups I've been in where you come to practice with nothing and you kind of just build. I'd love to be able to do that, like so from scratch. But sometimes it just comes down to time. It's like everyone's working and you have 2.5 hours, 3 hours a week to practice. And so you got to come with something of substance to be like, this is somewhat of a form, and then run from there. That's where going back to the beginning, like the organic part of the band felt so good, is like the songs just built naturally and felt elevated even after I'd come to them like, this is a finished song, and then sounds, well, now it sounds even more finished in a different way that I couldn't have done on my own.
Oh, absolutely. One song that I specifically wanted to like for sure ask about was the single Too Many Sides of the Same Coin, just because like that, like bringing back to the A and the B side, that song like stands out so differently, like sonically from the rest of the band. It almost feels more Sal Paradise-y than it does like Harlow, and that's not a bad thing. Like I don't want to be like, oh, it's recycled or anything, but talk to me about that single, because does the EP playing like the title Playing Dove come from that song?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
So is that kind of like, especially with like that title, which is like Peacemaker or even like Caught in the Middle, like is that kind of like, is that the song that really wraps up the EP, or do you feel like it's,
yeah, that's a great question. I think you could say it does in a way. The whole EP feels a lot about like, it's about rather than like romantic relationships specifically, which a lot of songs are, like a lot of reflection on just friendships and kind of an interesting time. And being in my mid 25 years old is kind of the first time in your life that you let friends go on purpose, or just you have to decide like, that person's just not right in my life, and it's not always a bad thing. But before you kind of just go who's around you geographically, and so that song is kind of just about like playing the middleman over and over again, but it's not really a point that you should, indifference is not good. And it's like you can hover and you can have a little bit of each friendship and group, but at the end of the day, it just I don't know, it just feels a little bit like you're being a bit of a fraud.
Yeah. Well, it's like the like especially when you're like 25, 26, you like just got, if you went to college, you just graduated college, and all of the people that you had met and made friends with there, suddenly you get into quote unquote real world and suddenly they're just they don't fit in, and it just when you put them in any context outside of going to classes or hanging out there, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's weird to think about relationships like that in like an analytical way, but sometimes you just have to weigh the odds of like out of whatever, like respect or just like the time you want, how much time you have and who you want to devote that time to.
Yeah.
And that's what that song is roughly about.
Yeah.
Hannah, what's it about to you?
I kind of always thought of it as just like a peacekeeper song. And my sister is one of those types, so I kind of think of her whenever we play that song.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't know if necessarily that to me playing Dove like was about the whole EP, but I just kind of like to pick those little moments out of songs and like use them to name the whole EP.
Gotcha. Well, if that doesn't quite fit, what's that part of the EP then that you pick out to kind of really encapsulate the release?
It's a good question.
Put you on the spot here.
I always open with Kid Gloves, the first one. I when I wrote that song, I wanted it to be specifically a first song. Like this is the first song of something. And also I liked the idea. I kept hearing songs that had like one part, maybe two chords, that was just like a loop over and over and over again. But then you kept building and building up into it until it just like eventually faded out. And so when I wrote like that song feels kind of like Open with Kid Gloves, which is kind of a dumb expression of just like to handle with care.
Yeah.
Which is funny, kind of goofy with like the songs, like how sensitive and introspective they are. It's like, go easy. Go easy. Yeah. But yeah, I think that song. I don't know if there's a whole circumference song. More, maybe less of a circumference meaning and more of a this is where we're at when we release this kind of thing. The Peacekeeper felt very relevant to me.
Hannah, do you have something you wanted to? You had anything to add? Because I know you kind of posed the crux for the question here.
Yeah. No, not necessarily. Yeah, I think that like all of these songs are just songs that we all like to play, and they like came together as a group. So I don't know if there's like really a theme that goes throughout them that I can point to, but
I wish we had a theme discussion.
Yeah.
I wish everyone cared that much.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. It's my job to try and find meaning where potentially meaning isn't there, Just pose it to you and go, that wasn't right. But it's, you tried. And that's what we appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there really isn't like a specific like over encompassing meaning, because I was like listening to it, especially with like playing Dove. I was trying to find maybe if there was, but each song feels more like a phase of a period of time than it actually does like it's one encompassing like concept, if that like makes sense. Especially with like the handle with care, and with the opening with Kid Gloves, and you get down to Yesterday's Gone, which feels like this very much a nice closure moment. So do these songs kind of come together to reflect like a period of time, or was it more, it just like Hannah said, they were just songs that all really flowed really well together and the band picked them up really well to put into a release?
I think now that I think about it, I'm like, even like in a linear way, like kind of like growth, because that to sort out what was out of line kind of it's like a breakup song, but it's kind of petty in some parts. And I know I used to be petty, and everyone can be sometimes in relationships and stuff. And so that kind of morphed into then like too many sides and kind of really analyzing your relationships, and Open with Kid Gloves, which I think is kind of a song about empathy and being able to like really see the emotions in someone physically and like notice the things that they're doing to make you comfortable. And it's this weird connection. And then Yesterday Is Gone, which is almost a song that I do all the time, which is you try to like give yourself advice that you probably won't take.
That's fair.
Much more prophetic and poetic in songs, but then later on you're not quite as bright.
You know, it allows you to have that grandiose statement where people go, "Wow, that's beautiful," and you're just like, it's
Yeah.
So it's not too common that we interview artists either right before a release or right after release, like it's same kind of come out same day situation. So being able to sit on a record, or it's been out for a while and you've been able to play out with it, what's kind of the takeaway, or like looking back on releasing Playing Dove, what are your thoughts on it, and being able to, in like the band, and like what would have been like the things you've been taking away from the release of the EP?
I think like giving ourselves more time before releases is always something that
because you sorry to have to cut in here for a second, but you like started as a band in like January, February, and your release was out in August, so it was
so we didn't have a lot of time to like tell people about it, I feel like, and that's something that I'm interested in doing for next one.
Yeah, the planning part of things is the music part is the fun part, and then you record, you work on it forever, and then you get to the end of it and you finally have your finished products, and it's like, oh, I have to do all this other stuff that I didn't account for. So I would agree in that we should do with it like so quick next time.
Yeah. When was about when you recorded this? Was that like spring of this year then, or?
Oh, we recorded it. We started it in February.
Wow. Okay.
Up north at a cabin. We just went up for the weekend and recorded.
Nice.
And then we kind of finished it throughout the spring. And then we had the songs, and I worked on them quite a bit, mixing them to get them more like how I wanted them to sound.
Yeah.
But I'm not an engineer by any means. So I could just get rough scratch ideas. But then we started working with Whistler Allen, drummer of Hippocampus, who who started mixing them, and he just kind of really understood the idea and the notion of the songs. So we're continuing to work with him. But that's kind of why it took so long. It was me. I messed around with them for so long trying to get them right when I should have just kind of passed it out to someone who knew what they were doing more.
Yeah. Well, it's the mixing is the way a lot of the production stuff is when you can get lost in the sauce a little bit. We were a pandemic band in the sense of like, it was still going on when you formed, but you didn't have a ton of time to really marinate as a project compared to like other, like if you'd started maybe like last year. So I've always wondered, because there's a couple bands that have like kind of come out, and I was interested in like the difference between like being able to spend the time when you physically can't like play gigs. You were able to play then pretty quickly after forming then, right?
Well, I think our first gig was in like June, I want to say. So we were practicing every week, like, and we had no clue what we were practicing for. And I kind of loved that because there was no pressure, and we could just work up whatever songs we wanted to work up and see where they went. But yeah, I think we had like a little bit of time. I guess it's not that much, but it's more than I'm used to, like having months to practice with no clue what you're practicing for.
Do you think that led to the more organic nature of the band coming together, just because there wasn't maybe that pressure to like start the band and get going in front of people as quickly as possible, or?
Yeah, probably. I think we're all like pretty chill also. And so that kind of leads to that as well.
Yeah. There's not a lot of egos in the band, which can often be the case in a lot of bands, but everyone seems to kind of fit together pretty well. And yeah, like Hannah said, we had so much time just to work on this. Like when you don't have a set to run because you have a show coming up, you kind of just write, which is like my favorite part of being in a band is like that band practice where the new song finally clicks and you just want to play it like 15 times.
Yeah.
So we had months and months of that, which was a pleasure. And like I love shows, but sometimes I wish we go back to that. Sometimes.
There's no pressure to get out and make sure everything's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
And our first gig, we actually found out about like a week before it happened, I think. So it was kind of nice because we had been practicing for so long. We're like, Wow, we're actually ready for a gig.
Yeah.
Given your own like histories in playing music and your own like skill, like was it pretty easy then to take Harlow in front of people, or was there that kind of the new band nerves?
I think there might have been a little bit of nerves, but mostly it was pretty easy. And we didn't tell anyone it was our first show. We just kind of went out there and hit it. And then afterwards we told a couple people and they were like, didn't even have any clues. So I was like, perfect. That's what we wanted.
Kind of moving on. I only have a few questions left here. Sure. What do you got coming up for the band? Then I saw Sam, you were kind of teasing some new music on Instagram, and I saw you posted the song, those lyrics in September for another song. You got new music on the way, or what's the band got coming up?
Yeah, we're actually we're finishing up mixing a new song with Whistler, which is almost done. It's a single. I think we're going to have a string of singles, 2 of them coming out. We have them recorded already, so now they're just in the mixing mode. Nice. It's going to be far more expedited than the last release. So I would expect them, late December for the first one. And yeah, it's going to be more rocky than the last one. A little bit more.
These are like our set closers.
Oh, nice. So if people have been able to catch you guys live, they'll know the tracks.
Yeah,
it's actually the opener and the closer. Those are the two.
Nice. So, have you found like being able to now, like with the fact that a lot of these like the songs are coming now with a full band in mind as opposed to like coming into a project, is that influencing the sound and maybe the way you're writing?
Yeah, I think so. I still have problems with. I played by myself for so long.
Yeah.
I play like a lot of like open acoustic guitar, and so sometimes I need to scale a lot of things back. But once we figured that out, there's people when there's room, people fit in great. And
gotcha. Anything else on the way? Any gigs? Anything else people should be aware of?
We're actually going to play our first gigs in Wisconsin in a couple weeks. We're going to Milwaukee and Appleton.
Nice.
That'll be a fun little travel trip.
I'm gonna steal a question that Wes always asks at the end of the interviews. What have you been listening to recently that people should be aware of, or that's been kind of something like your favorites? They don't have to be local bands. They can be, but anything like that's really been hitting, that's been on the playlist for y'all personally.
I'm obsessed with the Samia record that came out last year.
Okay.
I listen to it all the time. Never get sick of it.
I'm a big fan of that one too. And then I also love a local band called Night Moves.
Okay.
And they just put out a song a few days ago, and they're playing on Friday at the Fine Line.
Nice.
I'm always looking forward to them. And then, what else? I'm always listening to Adrian Lanker and Big Thief, like a lot of other people.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like one song I'm obsessed with is called "The Rain, the Park, and the Other Things" by the Cowswills. I don't know. It's a crazy old song, and it's in a movie I watched, and it's so good. So maybe if you're just looking for a pick me up.
Oh, absolutely. Well, cool. One last question here is, where can people connect with the band online?
Harlow the Band. Is that our Instagram?
Yeah, Harlow the Band. It should be Harlow the Band on most places. Instagram is where we're most active, but we also have Twitter, which I'll sometimes just tweet thoughts. Usually nothing to do with music. And then Facebook, Harlow the Band is actually the name, because you can't on Facebook. Harlow is a place in the UK, and apparently you can't have the name of a place as a page unless it's about the place. So it's Harlow the Band.
Interesting choices. Awesome. Yeah. Well, make sure if people listening to check out Playing Dove. It's on Spotify. You can listen to the EP almost anywhere, right? Spotify, Apple Music.
Yep.
All right. Well, Sam, Hannah, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @EarCoffee. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.